Well, I got stuff to show you today. More stuff for my studio full of stuff. Art stuff I bought from the art stuff store and stuff. Stay away from my stuff. Hello minders, welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. And yeah, we're gonna look at stuff. I don't think I've done this in a while, probably not since my Christmas episode in 2021. Didn't do a Christmas episode last year, and it's high time I look at a few things. These all kind of came up on my radar within the last few months. These are new and interesting things to me. They're not necessarily new, but it's the kind of thing I like to share with you when I get a chance. But before I do that, just a reminder, this is World Watercolor Month. Yeah, that's great. We have our own watercolor month. I confess I am not the best ambassador for World Watercolor Month. July tends to be such a crazy month for me. I think World Watercolor Month is awesome. It's a chance to go see what others are doing. If you love following prompts, there's our prompt list. This year's prompt list is done by Angela Fair. I've looked at the prompts. I think they're really cool. There's some great things in there. Unfortunately, I get very little chance to follow them. I hope maybe at least one week I'm going to pick a prompt and do a video. But you should go over there and check it out. If you want to do the full 31 paintings in 31 days, you got 31 prompts to follow. You can check out all the ambassadors. I love doing this every year with World Watercolor Month. I usually discover some artists and some channels that I'd never seen before. There's some sponsors doing giveaways. Many of these ambassadors are putting their artwork on some merch, so you can go check out the merch. And it's just a great time for watercolorists. So, and anytime you do a painting during the month of July, you can put the World Watercolor Month hashtag on there. All right, so back to our stuff. Let's start with this. This is paint, handmade paint from the Stoneground Paint Company. Now, I do not have any handmade paint. It's sort of a big trend right now. People are loving the handmade paint, and it's just kind of interesting. I've just got so much paint, and, you know, I'm a painter. I'm not really a connoisseur of handmade paint, per se. I mean, I think it's cool, but this kind of interested me, and I was actually ordering some stuff from Wet Paint. I just was trying to fill out my cart so I could get free shipping. How's that for an excuse for buying? Handmade in Canada. They have several distinctives besides the fact that they actually make this by hand with an old-fashioned muller and slab. Their paints are single pigment paints. Now, I'm not going to get into a review, really. The best place to go for a good review would be Denise Soden over on her channel. She's done at least 3 videos, I think 2 on the watercolor and 1 on the gouache. So if you want a lot of really good information, and she does her due diligence on research and testing, go over to Denise Soden's channel and watch her videos. This interested me for one reason. The great earthy landscapey colors. That was neat. And the fact that this, I thought, would make a really nice plein air palette. I mean, look at this. Look at this packaging. Isn't this neat? We got golden ochre, kaput mortem, Mayan indigo blue, titanium buff, chromium oxide green, Mayan green deep. So you could easily slip this into a plein air pack, maybe even along with another palette. And I use magnets typically to attach my palette. So this could easily get clipped to a sketchbook or a plein air easel. Well, let's take a look. I've actually not really even looked at these yet. Hand poured. Look at that. Very exciting. Let's just do a real quickie swatch. This painter's diary. So let's go and actually swatch it in here. Golden ochre. Very creamy consistency. Re-wets really quick. And that's always been my beef with some types of pan colors that you get, is that you just have to re-wet. Seems like forever, or let it soak. Probably due to the honey. Most honey paints re-wet rather quickly. That's just lovely. Got some opacity to it. All right, nice ochre color. Very vibrant. They use no fillers, no additives. Their claim is that this is just honey and pigment, of course, and gum arabic. So very traditional. Very nice. Already impressed. And I really just can't wait to take that on a little plein air adventure. All right, Caput Mortem. Let's see what that is. Swatch reminds me of a Perylene Violet or Maroon. Again, just love how instantaneously these paints wet. Just fantastic. Ooh, nice and dark. Definitely very earthy. Very nice. Mayan Indigo Blue. Ooh, yeah. Very rich. Really more of a green blue, I guess. So nice. See if I can get a little more pigment there. Absolutely gorgeous jewel tone. Wow. All right, let's scoot these over a little bit. On to Mayan Green. Wow. Very dark. Very earthy. Nice. I see some granulation. Both in the Mayan Indigo Blue. Well, really all of these darker colors. And that's really almost a Payne's Gray like color. Let's try now Chromium Oxide Green. Very creamy. Feels like there's probably some opacity here. This, yep, a bit rich, very rich color. Just really nice. Wasn't sure what I was going to find. No, isn't that a pretty range right there? All right, and then we are going to try Titanium Buff. This should be fairly opaque. Yep, that's a nice titanium buff. There you have it. And I'm really excited. This will be going with me in my next plein air adventure for sure. All right, so that's a first look at Stoneground Paint Company's Earth Palette. Handmade paint by a pretty neat Canadian company. And again, go check out Denise's reviews on this if you want more information. All right, as long as I've got this swatch book out here, we're going to look at another paint. Now, this was sort of quietly released by Daniel Smith. At least I did not hear a whole lot of hoopla about this. I don't necessarily keep up with all the releases. I mean, Daniel Smith just has a ton of them. Seems like all the time. This is Jane's Black, and there are two versions of Jane's Black, the blue-orange and the red-green. Now, I paint with muted tones a lot. I don't use a lot of black just because the pigments in most blacks are can tend to dry fairly dead and flat. I don't avoid blacks completely because they work pretty well intense, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a transparent black? And supposedly, that's what this is. This is mixes sort of like Jane's Gray, if you're familiar with Jane's Gray. Now, Jane Blundell is sort of a pigment guru. She has a blog where she tests light fastness and swatches just scads and scads and scads of paint. And so these are apparently designed and put together by Jane Blundell. And I use Jane's Gray a lot. It's in a couple of my plein air palettes. It's a transparent form of Payne's Gray, which a lot of forms of Payne's Gray use as a PB pigment, a black pigment. These do not use any PB pigments. Their light fast rating is 1. Red-green version is PG7 and PR264. That's Pyrrole Crimson and Phthalo Green. What I'm most curious about is when we tint these out, if we're going to see any kind of separation, we're going to see any kind of color cast tinting. And the blue-orange version, also rated light fast number 1, Phthalo Blue, PB156, Naphthol Red, PR188, and Pyrrole Orange, PO71. So let's take a look at these. We'll start with the blue-orange, since that is in my hand. If you've ever seen videos, I actually did a video on it, and other artists have too, on how to mix your own blacks. That's sort of what this is. You can use complements. The thing about mixing your own blacks is usually the complements are not exact, so if you get into a light tint situation, you're going to actually see color. But in mass tone, they usually paint really, really dark. So the blue-orange, just looking here in this pan, it's pretty black, pretty neutral. I am really very excited about this, to be honest with you, because this is just really a form of neutral tint. Neutral tint basically can be black when you put it down heavy enough. This is what I wanted to see. Wow, would you look at that? I really was expecting more of a color cast, but they have nailed the complementary aspect of this, you know, being where complementary colors cancel each other out. Look at that, folks. Like a neutral tint, it is a transparent black. Let us try Jane's Gray Red Green. See if there's any difference in either color cast of any kind or warmth. I'm going to have to figure out how to work this into a palette. Very deep. Mass tone. Neat. This looks to be cooler. Have a cooler sort of feel to it. Again, it just reminds me of some sort of neutral tint. I mean, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. And this seems to be darker. I don't know if I got quite the same amount of paint on my brush, but this just seemed to go down so much darker, the red-green version. All right, anyway, there's a look at that, and I will probably get this into my workflow at some point. Jane's Black Blue Orange and Jane's Black Red Green. Really neat. All right, let's look at some brushes. Now, these are sort of oddball brushes. They're not new. They've actually been around for a while. There are some artists that really swear by these. These are called extended point brushes or reservoir brushes. Extended point seems to be the name that brings in the best results when I do searches for it. I had trouble finding any of these at all on Amazon. These are all from Rosemary and Company, and they're just standard brushes. If you took away the point, they'd look like a standard round, but then the point extends out. Now, there are a few artists that I have heard of that just really swear by these. I have never used one. You're seeing me do it for the first time, and I'm guessing the point is to use the point. I'm not sure beyond that what the advantage is, other than it's probably going to hold a lot of water and paint. This one is sort of like a cat's tongue because it's got a flatter belly. It's pretty thick and heavy. In my previous episode that I just did last week, we looked at daggers and wedges. This looks like it might be a brush that would also fit in that category that makes your sort of your marks, your random marks more easily. Got a dancy tip. Maybe a rigger-like brush, which holds more paint and water. I'm wondering if you could draw with this longer. Otherwise, what's the point? Any of you out there that are experienced and have done a lot of work with these brushes and like them, tell me what you like about them. Tell me your favorite thing and why you use them. I don't really know until, I have put them through their paces, and that's kind of why I did that video last week with the daggers and the wedges. All right, this is probably the biggest one. This is the Rosemary and Company Extended Point Series 46. Another one in that same series is this one. It's also kind of flattened, but it's much smaller. So this is probably going to act a lot like a rigger. Nice expressive tip, though. I like that. Yeah, it's got some fairly unique mark-making ability. All right, both of those are in there, Series 46. Then they have these, which this is Extended Point Series 336. And there's no flatness to these at all. These are round, completely round. It honestly feels a little weird to paint with because you don't know whether to go for the fat part of the belly or just paint with the tip. I imagine it's just meant to be painted with on the tip. That one does not have the most sensational of points right there. So I'm not sure why I would paint with that one. A big belly round with a good point would probably do just as well. But that's why we try these things. Just call me Mr. Test. Testing has certainly cost me a lot of money over the years. But it's fun. I like super enjoy it, and I learn so much. So, that's for you guys too. Money well spent. I really am not sure I would use that. I really find no advantage to that over a long round or a designer round. And I talk about that in a detail episode I made a few weeks ago. Not the most impressive point on that one. Let's try this one. Same series. Now that's got a razor fine point. And essentially I think you're just looking at a rigger. This would be like a number 2 rigger. And I'm supposing that you load it up all the way back here, because otherwise what's the point of that fat belly? Nice expression. I like this one. I think I would use this one. Of these, I am more likely to use these smaller ones than these bigger ones. These just make for a really interesting and expressive and usable rigger. Yeah, I like that. All right, so that is 4 extended point brushes from Rosemary and Company, also referred to as reservoir brushes, though I more commonly see them referred to as extended point. Those are my initial first use thoughts on that. All right, next up, and this is a handmade item. Again, I love supporting individual artisans. This is a gentleman by the name of Seth Stratton. He sells these on Etsy. He's a public school art teacher in Minnesota, and he makes all sorts of configurations of these ceramic pallets, which are kind of unique. I mean, you can buy all kinds of ceramic pallets out there, but these are handmade. This is the one he sent me when I was most interested, because I don't like wells butting up to each other, and I like a big mixing area. So he's got, again, you need to look at his Etsy store. He's got all kinds of configurations. He's got like single strips with no mixing area. He's got like 2 well, 4 well, I think. Some where there's just a row that borders a mixing area. Just all sorts of configurations. And he also makes these really interesting brush rests, which I wanted one of those. So very simple. Ceramic is an excellent painting surface. Doesn't stain, cleans off completely. I was thinking I might even use this for gouache, not sure. But go over to his Etsy store and give him a look and see if he's got something that interests you. Just a wide variety of things over there. Okay, so that was a quick one. What else I got? Okay, so I covered this in my Christmas episode 2 years ago. So this is not a new pen. I bought this one, again, probably over 2 years ago. This is the TWSBI Swipe. If you know anything about TWSBI, you know they make an exceptional pen. I mean, just a really nice pen. Really top quality pen. The Swipe will fool you. If somebody handed you this, you'd never seen it before, and you didn't know it was TWSBI or know that TWSBI, what kind of quality they make, you might think it's a little chintzy because it's a very light plastic. Don't let that fool you. It is an excellent pen, and they are known for the reliability of their mechanics inside. I actually had not used this pen in over a year. I usually try to go through all my fountain pens, clean them to make sure they're writing so they're not getting too clogged. This was an immediate starter. Now I was using Noodler's Red Black. I really love that color. I like the cap posted on this one. Just gives it a little extra weight and balance. This was the smoke color. And since TWSBI released this Swipe, it's just been extremely popular. It's a good, and the reason I bring it up again today is this is a good entry-level fountain pen because it's not expensive. It's an excellent, excellent performer. So you would get professional, basically high level quality performance out of it without paying a lot. So it's about $28. And you can pay hundreds of dollars for fountain pens. I've never found a reason to do that other than, you know, the love of fountain pen design. But I love the styling of this. I've never been a huge fan of the more traditional cigar-shaped fountain pens. They're okay, but I like these sleeker, more modern styled pens. So that's also why this was a favorite. Anyway, that's actually all introduction. I bought another one. Long story short, I bought a Prussian blue one. How cool is that? It's not filled. They come with multiple filling mechanisms. That's one of the neat things about them. You can go cartridge. You can go with their plunger fill system, which I like. It's fast, it's reliable. Or you can go with the standard twist converter, which they also include. You even have an extra spring in there. So yeah, I have a new fountain pen that I didn't need, but I'm enjoying sharing it with you and giving you the recommendation if you're looking for a fountain pen. The TWSBI Swipe. All right, and lastly, a book. How many of you out there have ever heard of the artist Robert Bateman? Well, if you're at all into wildlife artists, you should have heard of him. Robert Bateman is a Canadian artist, wildlife artist. I think he primarily works in acrylic. I'm not sure about other medium. I know he does work a lot in acrylic. I bring him up because he's like 93 years old now. I think he's still kicking. That's disrespectful. I think he's still thriving. At least I hope he is. But what a sensational painter. And I bring this up because we were in a used bookstore the other day, and I could not believe my luck in finding this book for $8. Now, I have seen Robert Bateman books on the shelf for years in various bookstores. I've almost bought one a couple times. This book originally sold for $60. I think later printings ended up selling it for $29.99, $30 basically. But I mean, $8. And, you know, I just want to appreciate what a good artist he is. I'm not here to brag about my find, because as soon as I got home, I went on Amazon and looked. Now, he has probably published 15 books over the years. I mean, this is an award-winning artist who's had numerous shows, had his own gallery and foundation. Not a nobody, okay? And there were several books of his still on Amazon. And if you go on Amazon to look for a Robert Bateman book, look under the regular price at the used, and you will be amazed. I immediately ordered a second book, a different book, which I got for $6.99. I am absolutely floored that his books are going for so little used. So anyway, let us look at Robert Bateman for a moment. Incredible. I think the thing that has always impressed me about Robert Bateman is his landscape, and just the way that he features and stars some sort of wildlife in his landscapes. But his landscape, I mean, if you took that bird out, which I don't want to do, but you get me, right? If I took that bird out, you still have this breathtaking landscape. And that is true with just about all of them. I mean, seriously, just amazing. The color. The other thing that has always struck me and just wowed me about Robert Bateman is his atmosphere and light. I would paint almost anything, any subject. I love painting any subject. You know, I focus a lot on landscape on this channel. I love portraits, love birds. But what means the most to me is light and atmosphere. And that's just exceedingly difficult to do well. Case in point. Breath coming out of this bear. Can tell that it's snowing. Okay, yeah, it's an opaque medium, so some of these effects are easier to create, but not easy by any means. Again, just an incredible scene with all the straw and the grass, and then this little creature here, that mouse peeking out from under it. So he's all about setting, and that has always been my favorite thing about Robert Bateman, is the settings that he puts his wildlife in. I mean, look, this horse tack is probably what you would consider the main subject here, but here's what is that? A swallow? Yeah, it's a barn swallow. And a nest. Isn't that great? Look at this. Such a cool barn painting. But the wildlife is there. The animals are there. Here again, we go with atmosphere. Just dimensional atmosphere you can almost taste and feel. A landscape, basically. split rail fences, rustic house. Stuck over here is a pheasant. I love seeing wildlife like this in these kind of settings. I remember sitting in bookstores, couldn't really pay $60 for his book, just sitting over in a corner looking at one of his books, going clear back to my college days. He's been painting since the 70s. And it was just great to see one of his books. I haven't seen it in literally years. I haven't looked or thought about his work in literally years just because I haven't been reminded of it. No wildlife in this one. And looking at it again and just sort of rediscovering it and saying, oh, yeah, this guy. I remember this guy. How incredible. I won't go through the whole book, but everywhere you turn, it's the same thing. Breathtaking landscapes with just incredibly rendered animals. Grab these books. If this kind of art interests you at all, grab these books while they're available, especially the used ones at such cheap prices. And I saw several, again, on Amazon, so give them a look. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this little show and tell, which I haven't done one of these in a while. Thanks, patrons, for your support. We'll see everybody in the next video.